Welcome to Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious. I'm Lane Nooney.
And I'm Joost van Dreunen.
And we're here digging deep on why games matter in today's economy. On the docket today, Friday, September 12th, we're peeking under the work pipe to see how Nintendo keeps leveling up while the rest of the industry chases trends, starting with the Switch 2's record-breaking launch and tracing a legacy of creative risk and disciplined design. Plus, we'll check in on Roblox's evolving trust and safety crisis, a lawsuit out of Louisiana, new restrictions on sexual content, and long overdue standardization age ratings. All that and more with your two very level-headed co-hosts, but first, we've got some catching up to do. Woo!
Right. What's going on?
Musical interlude. What's new with you?
The rent.
Like we always
the rent is new. No.
Start by talking about me, but we gotta talk about you. You can't be such an enigma on this.
Who is he? What's he doing? Where is he from? No, I'm having the best time. Like the beginning of the school semester is the beginning of my sort of mental, spiritual year. I don't know what it is. Like, you know, like this idea of like having January be the beginning of anything. It's like, it seems like that's the part where you kind of pull through and try not to succumb to depression. Like September is a great month. It's also my birthday. Monday was my birthday.
What?
So maybe that's why.
I don't have your birthday in my calendar. We had a planning call, and you didn't tell me it was your birthday?
Listen, like that's, you know, I don't know what to say. You know,
I was mostly complaining about.
I mean, what the fuck?
I was mostly complaining about my period. I guess it's fine.
You know, we all got our gifts, and I don't make a fuss of it. Also, Monday is not a day for birthdays. So this Saturday you'll be.
What presents did you get?
I got a new coffee mug.
Did it say "World's Best Dad"?
No, it said this is the same one as the old one that you broke. So it's like I'm not into the paraphernalia. Like buy me a drink. That's much more fun. Like that's a gift. I don't like the awkward unwrapping in front of people. Like yay, and then they sing and they bring you some shit with a candle in it. Just like buzz off. I don't want any of this. I want to be just like loved quietly. So that was this week, and the kids are back to school. Kids like going to school. They like seeing their little friends. Their friends like them too, apparently. And it's wonderful that the little one goes to pre-K, and is so proud.
Oh, yeah, how'd that go?
It's just chaos and sticky fingers all over the place. But there's something so endearing, and then I'm a bit of a seasoned dad now because I have the 12-year-old too. So I've done this circuit a couple times, but you see the first timers and you're just like, oh, that's so cute. Like the parents are heartbroken dropping off their kids at pre-K, like they can't. So it's a week of beginnings and new starts and sorts. It's nice. I really lean into my dadhood. So that's what's up with me, Lane. What's going on with you? How are the guns?
The guns are okay. I've been sleepy and tired this week, but I just started as the undergrad director, and that I haven't broken anything yet, so I think it's going well. It's a lot of new kinds of email to be CC'd on. It's a lot of new kinds of meetings that people want you to attend, but not necessarily do or say anything at. So
I imagine with your improved and elevated status, you also have more meetings of an administrative nature.
I went from before tenure, right? It's a little weird that I'm taking on this role the second I'm back as a tenured professor, but whatever. But previously I had one faculty meeting I went to a month. Now I have 5.
A quintupling of faculty.
Yeah, it's not great.
Is it the same people every time, or did I like?
No, it's different combinations of the same people. So no. There's one meeting that's like all the full-time faculty, and then there's a meeting of just the tenured full-time faculty, and then there's a meeting of just the core, which is the directors of the undergrad, PhD, and MA program, and the chair, and those
Mm.
four meet together. And then there's an undergrad committee meeting, so I have to hold my own meetings. And then there's also the Steinhardt undergraduate committee meetings, in addition to which I have not yet enumerated are the Steinhardt general faculty meetings, which I'm supposed to be at. So yeah, that's how that's going.
That's wild. That's a wild amount of meetings.
Yeah.
Do you even know if you could say this, but like, is this a productive part of your day? Like these meetings? Like, is
Um,
it like the kind of department that gets shit done, or is it more like ceremonial and
it's more
ritualistic?
like the meeting is where we tell everyone the information because we can't trust people to read it in an email.
This is fantastic.
Like we could, like most faculty meetings could maybe be a newsletter, but
This
we
meeting could
need
have
to
been a news.
round all you up in a space and yap at you so that you I mean there's things where like people vote on stuff, but
Mhm.
really the and also we it is good for us to be in the same room together. We do have to steer this department
Mhm.
as a collective, but yeah, most of it is like I have to give an update report every meeting on like what's new in the undergrad program or what are changes that are being made or and it's like what if there was nothing new, nothing to report. That's the life I aspire to live, to have nothing to report. But
Well,
inevitably, if you give people time at the end of a faculty meeting or even in the middle, it will turn into what I like to call unstructured grievance time, which is
that's grievance time.
when faculty just want to complain about things in a unhelpful way, but they don't want to solve them, nor do they want to lead a committee that would solve them.
No,
Anyway,
that's why I ask. It seems so often ceremonial or like a ritual of just
I assume in
I'm
the
here.
smaller meetings, more at like the smaller the meeting, the more things get done. I think is probably a fairly accurate hunch, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe I don't have to run undergrad meetings. Maybe I could just run it all on Slack.
So we went from this meeting could have been a newsletter.
This meeting could have been a group chat.
It could have been a Slack group,
Yeah, yeah.
a WhatsApp group. I'm with you on
No,
all this. Yeah, I do not like. I'm not
you
good
know,
with those
you
meetings.
don't you don't have to suffer through this as a adjunct faculty member. These are not
No, I
part of your
create my own.
expectations.
When I
Yeah,
build companies, they grow, and then I have my own giant meetings.
yeah. I
I
have
try
friends
to.
who are executives, and it's all they get triple booked for meetings. It's all they do in a day is meet.
Yeah, it's very unprofessional. No, I mean, like, look, like you're supposed to create value. Is that valuable? I don't know. Like, it's a you create more value with smaller groups.
It
Like
would
you
be
said.
wild to think of my job as creating value. Incredible. I did hear that you couldn't figure out how to share your syllabus with all your students, which is why we don't have any statistics to share with our audience
Yep,
today.
yep, yep. That's how good I am. That's
You
how much value I created.
you couldn't figure out how to use the course management system Brightspace. Did you figure that out?
Yeah, more or less, more or less.
Is it
It's
launched? Did your students?
I just emailed everybody. It's just like I just BCC'd 50 students. Yo, see attached. I'll see you Thursday. Like
Okay.
Brightspace is exactly the kind of administrative intermediary that we don't need. I get it. I get it. I'm an adjunct. Who cares what my opinion is? But it's just the draconian nature of these software applications. This is I think my third one. I previously enjoyed Blackboard very much.
Blackboard, that was a real hit.
Also,
Yeah.
hugely
They're all the
successful.
same. The contracts, I don't understand the rationales. I also have never met a power user. Like these are tools that have so much functionality.
Yeah,
There are so many crazy things that you could do
mhm.
inside a course management system and I'm like, I want to send an announcement and post my grades. Like I
Mhm.
don't the what who's in there just like driving it like a fucking SUV, you know?
It's an abomination the way they develop these things because it has to do all
Yeah.
of it, but the back end that I see as a teacher is just like
It's
it's
incomprehensible. Yeah.
yeah, and
Doesn't make any
so
sense.
which I'm not saying therefore it's their fault. It's just like there's always something. Another
Yeah.
issue I have, and this is sort of part of my own hygiene, is I record all my lectures because students can't always make it, so then they can watch those. And I like to use the transcripts to kind of improve my course materials. I think we discussed this. So every semester it's the same thing. It's like, would you like to record your lectures? Yes. So I select it, and then I have to follow up with like 17 different people at the tech department to actually get it done. And it's just like, so then why ask me? It's just like it's hugely dysfunctional. Anyways, so that's the first week of school. It's okay. I figured out how to get the syllabus across. We'll see how many students show up tomorrow or this
Yeah.
week.
So, did you get them their gameplay habit survey?
I did. How many responses do you have?
I bet I have more than you.
Probably.
So, I
I've
have.
I have 36.
Oh, that's better than I would have thought, given it came in over like a weird. Oh shit! I got 50. All 50 filled it out.
100%.
That's
Very
right.
nice.
That's incredible.
Well done.
Okay.
I'm going to spend 5 minutes in class on this week. That's going to be.
Whoa! 38% of my students from the US, 44% from China. Wrecked. Whoa.
Oh, wow. I
can't wait. 31 countries represented. Fucking
Whoa.
crazy.
I
Wait, that can't be. That part can't be
No,
right.
that's not true. That's not true.
That's not true. Ukraine, Korea, Puerto Rico, India, one from Colombia, Hong Kong, Canada, Venezuela.
Where is Tuvalu? Any is that
How do
is
you
that
spell that?
Tuvalu?
It is a country in Oceania. Looks nice. That's what I'll say. The photos look. It appears to be near Tonga, and near kind of Samoa, east of the Solomon Islands, northwest of Samoa, north of Fiji, in that region.
Whoa.
It has 9 islands.
Holy hell, that's far away. It's like go past Australia and keep going,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
take a left at Fiji.
Correct. Yes.
Jesus. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That is wild. That's wild to think that people come from like a place like that to come like take a class on video games with me. It just blows my
then
mind.
they come to meet me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good work, everybody. All right, so yeah, I've got all 50, and so the long story short is, audience, I know we really sold you on tune in next week for all of our statistics. That didn't happen because Yoast didn't know how to use his CMS.
So sorry.
And so we're a week behind. So we will talk about our stats next week. I hadn't even looked at mine because I was trying to save all the excitement for this encounter, this meeting. But it's already a little fun to see 30% of my students do not own a console.
Really?
Amazing. All right, I can't wait to get into the... Whoa, 50% own a Switch. That's actually, speaking of Nintendo. Somebody wanted to talk about Nintendo today. So we had to kind of rearrange, we were like, oh, what are we doing? And Yoast was like, I want to yammer about Nintendo, because apparently they did a new console release, and it was like the most they ever sold or some shit. Did that happen?
That's such a good lead-in. Well done, man. I could see it.
I'm in a fun mood today.
I could tell. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's move on with our lives. Well, Nintendo is the topic of conversation at the beginning of the semester for obvious reasons. It's been around a long time and all this stuff, but also it has this more contemporary topic because it's basically the only game company that doesn't care about like Moore's law and the metaverse or tech in general. And so it's a type of company that always zigs when everybody else is zagging or whatever, and that ends up being hugely successful. And so it goes against so much conventional knowledge in the industry, and it creates a really sort of steady, productive jump-off point when I talk to my students, and and it's also been releasing new hardware. So I think that was worth some measure of attention. First off, is of course that the Switch 2 launched a few months ago to record numbers,
Yep.
5.3 million units
Yep.
sold.
I'll be honest. I didn't see it coming. I didn't think it was going to be that big a that big a deal. But
Why did you not see it coming? Like, what was
because
your
it's not a huge like it's not a massive upgrade. It's not like a new console. It's not a it's most of the content. Almost the majority of it, with the exclusion of a couple games, are all still playable on the regular Switch. It's not a massive playability extension. Um,
true? It did, the technical
so I
improvements
was
seem limited.
surprised that it blew out as hard as it did.
Hmm.
You know,
There was some sense of endogenous skepticism, right? Like, is it an improvement in a technical sense? There's no strong launch titles like a new Zelda or new Mario game. There's a Mario Kart game, which is,
Donkey Kong Bonanza,
yeah, it wasn't a
which I've
launch
heard is.
title on the day
Oh, that's
of.
true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. There wasn't a big launch title.
Right,
Yeah.
the successful ones have always launched with a new Mario and a Zelda like day of kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have that, so people were a little skeptical. You're right about the sort of hardware specs. It's like sort of all around a slight improvement. Although I've spoken to people who say that it's totally worth it. This is not a plug, like buy your own Switch if you do or don't like to. But it's to say that they had to remaster like the Breath of the Wild version of Zelda and Tears of the Kingdom, for instance. And people have told me that have played it, say like it's totally worth it. It looks so much better, blah blah blah. But on paper, in the lead up to the premiere of it, it didn't seem like that was going to make a huge difference. So you're right. Like people were a little skeptical. It's probably too strong, but they were a little hesitant from a just company perspective. On the outside of the company, there's also, of course, the fact that the games industry has been having a hard time. So here you have like a few years of decline. You see, particularly in console, sort of saturation around, how many people play console games really. And so launching a new hardware device in that sort of economic momentum, you know, doesn't seem like that's going to be some huge breakout hit. Then there is the fact that the, wonderful American U.S. administration announced in April 2nd on Liberation Day a whole host of confusing tariffs, and
Yep.
let it be known that Nintendo relies for 40% of its revenue on the U.S. So that's a problem, right? When your manufacturing takes place in China and then you have to ship all that stuff to the U.S. And so people were figuring that was not going to work out very well. Tariffs in general for console are kind of a pest. During the first Trump administration, you had the same problem. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo got together, issued a plea saying, "Hey, can we not do this? Thank you." The Consumer Electronics Association, they did a report in December, and they calculated that consoles would cost an additional $246 based on anticipated tariffs from all of these countries where they make consoles. So in other words, you have endogenous circumstances of like, okay, it's not a big upgrade and where are your titles, and then exogenous, like, okay, what's actually happening out there that you don't control, and that doesn't look so hot either. And yet, Nintendo is kicking ass. So the question is why? Why is this so successful? Then
Why?
give me your top two reasons why Nintendo is so successful right now.
Why Nintendo is so? I didn't
Yeah.
know that there was going to be a quiz portion of this podcast.
You are the boss of surveys, apparently.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
busy actually looking at my survey data while you were
Yes.
talking. I was like, I'm
Um,
going to let him monologue, and I'm going to discover that no students use a VR device weekly. Amazing.
what?
I know. Well, I won't let us go down that rabbit hole. I mean, I think Nintendo, the reason, I don't know if I could say two, I might just say one, is that Nintendo is not in the business of supplying the same kind of experiences as the kind of trad center of the console
Mm,
market, right? Nintendo has never carved itself out as being focused on like realism, or like it's not pursuing like fidelity to the real world.
mhm,
It's not overzealous on spec. It spends a lot of time focusing on quality of play experience, And it
Hmm.
doesn't subordinate that, I would say, most of the time to like monetization. And it really thinks about the player first, especially, when we're talking about first, second party products. And it's willing to be technologically um, adventurous, right? I mean, the other two, Xbox and PlayStation, are not in the business of innovation. Like, I said what I said. Clip it. You know, turn that into a viral moment or whatever
Xbox and
we're doing.
PlayStation are not in the business of innovation.
They're not. They're in the business of, we put a new casing on more chips
Hmm.
every 6 to 7 years, and we're gonna give you even more blood in this iteration of like Hitman Old World or whatever the fuck we're doing. And Nintendo's not. That's not their. They have such a strong brand. You know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that brand actually descends from something. It has. This is a company that has a sense of values to it, right? And it has managed to maintain that for 40 years.
Nintendo is 137 years old.
I'm talking about as a player in the video game console space. Yost, do not come here and try to historically lecture me on Nintendo.
It initially started as a card game company.
Yeah, I'm aware. Thank you.
I'm lane splaining.
Did you know? Did you know? Like any man who meets me. Oh, you're a video game historian. Did you
Oh,
know
did
that
you know?
Nintendo started as a card company?
I love it. I love that. You know, that's the life you chose. There's nothing you can do about that. That's what you get. Like, if you were a butcher, you'd get your hands dirty and there'd be a lot of blood. It's it's interesting for me how your analysis of Nintendo is partially correct. It's true that they don't play the game of better, faster, more tech consistently. In fact, they deliberately, this has been written about sort of extensively over the years, but it's a very deliberate design choice in Nintendo's history to not do that. They're like, no, 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 we're gonna make this more fun, and then Nintendo in its own mind thinks of itself as a toy company first. So they don't really bother themselves with like chips and any of that stuff. They just want it to be interesting. And you see this constantly reiterated in all these different manifestations. They bring out like alarm clocks, and they had that cardboard box, sort of where you have a bunch of cardboard that you put around your
Yeah,
Switch, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you could do all this kind
yeah.
of stuff. And so, who does that? Microsoft and Sony are very different companies. They're much more tech-based companies, right? Microsoft's, of course, mostly making cloud infrastructure and operating software, and Sony does consumer electronics. So all of it has to be
Yeah,
faster, more chips.
yeah. They're
For
just making stuff that pipelines into those larger businesses.
Mhm. So in that sense, you're correct that they've never played that game, which is why they're successful now. And we could talk about that in more detail. But the part where I kind of disagree is that Nintendo has clear brand values, but so does Sony. Like they're very much about sort of more mature gaming, and that's what sets them apart and what allowed them to beat out like Sega in so many ways. Like it just have a certain level of maturity in their content in the same way that they do that with music and film, allowing them to like, okay, when I get this high quality technical presentation or consumptive thing, and also it's going to be interesting and worth my while. The Last of Us season 2 just won another Emmy, or won its first Emmy actually. The first season won 8 Emmys. The second one is now on its first. So it's like that level of production is central to the Sony mindset, like high value AAA stuff. Microsoft is a little different. They focus more on like multiplayer, and they have cool game experiences, but they come at it from a different perspective. So, but they still have brand values. They still have a sort of tentpole set of titles or intellectual property by which you recognize them, right? It's like Sony has Last of Us, and they have Bungie titles, and nowadays they have God of War, etc. And then Microsoft has Halo, the Fallout franchises, in the same way that Nintendo has Mario and Zelda, right? They personify the brand. The games themselves communicate the same values. So they all have brand values, is really what I'm saying. Did I mansplain that well enough to you? Or
Where are we
you?
going with this?
Well, where we
Sure.
go is,
Yes.
well, so where we go with this is the larger narrative is in the industry is the following. Nintendo did not revitalize the games industry on its own and with its charming smile. It did so by basically imposing a very strict distribution strategy. The games industry was on its ass because everybody was making the same crap. They had greatly overestimated demand. They had ordered too many copies of games that were never going to sell at Atari and other companies.
Can
And so
you can you give this a year? Can we situate ourselves in time?
this was yesterday. No, this in 1983. You have this overnight holiday season where the amount of undifferentiated content is so abundant. Everybody's making Pac-Man games, Pong games, etc. That you end up basically looking at the industry as a consumer saying, like, what's the difference here for me? A lot of companies overestimate demand, and as a result, you end up with a sort of analysis of the games industry that says, oh, this was a great run for a couple of years, guys, but clearly it was a fad, like the toy business that this comes from. And so it's over now. It's a hula hoop, and it's done. Gaming, video games, they had their moment, but it's now on their way out, and it goes from a $2 billion a year business to a $200 million business. So it loses 90% of its value, and that's the moment Nintendo enters the U.S. market. This is 1983, the video game crash,
Mm-hmm.
which is sort of a well-known phenomenon at this point for a lot of people, but it's a auspicious time because why would you, as a Japanese company, enter the U.S. market at that particular moment? That's sort of the question, like the strategic question, like why would you do this? Do you have an answer? What's your answer? Why would Nintendo join in?
Because they were not in the business of making television peripherals. That was not how they thought of their business,
Mm-hmm.
which was what they were not making computers, which is what half of that shit that you're talking about was.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making toys.
Yes,
They were not making devices that were sold in the home electronics section of a store.
of course.
Um, yeah.
It was all in the
And
toy
so
aisle.
for them, like it was like we're not, this is a different kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they had great success in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are we marching for the next like 45 minutes through Nintendo's whole history, or are
No,
we
no,
skipping ahead?
we got 7 minutes left here. on I'll give you that as a historian. You don't have a lot of patience for like the beautiful illustrations and the compelling metaphors that I have in store for you. So I'll just cut to the chase. What I like about Nintendo is that it truly zigs when everybody zags in that sort of cliche way. It enters the U.S. market when it seems like the stupidest time to do it, and it is incredibly successful in that it does really three things. It rebuilds the retail structure. Retailers at the time were pissed. They're like, yo, video games suck. We don't want this anymore. And they're like, well, actually, if we don't charge you for any of this and we pay for everything until you sell one, would you do it? They're like, fine. So they put a bunch of these Famicoms or Nintendo Entertainment Systems in the stores, and they rebuild the relationship with the retailers. They do the same thing with publishers, but they flip the script a little bit, right? So it was always everybody was out for themselves at the time. Nintendo says, if you build for us, these are the rules, including you pay into this larger marketing pot of money. And nobody thought that it made sense, but it allowed them to grow the install base and have sort of like a uniform message of like quality games. And then they reached out to consumers saying like, here's a hotline and here's a magazine and here's all these ways to rebuild value, so that they kind of took all the anxiety out of the ecosystem and created a wonderful set of games, but also a very smart publishing strategy. And so that characterizes Nintendo. They're always thinking about very different things than you think. And so fast forward to today, like they're doing the same thing with the Switch too, right? They are launching at a time when it doesn't seem like a good idea, but it seems like it's a flat year and everything is on fire or miserable. And you end up with
Hmm.
like actually it's doing really well. And the reason is they're building these experiences. They've established values and they've established a sense of getting your money's worth that consumers, but also the rest of the industry very much likes. And so it's this high watermark historically as it is in the 80s as it is today. So 40 years later, they keep doing the same thing. That's what's
Yeah,
interesting about Nintendo for me.
yeah, it's interesting. I like how now that, right, so historical narratives always shift depending on when you're looking at them, and you know, I like that the Wii U is a thing we now write off as an aberration, When before the Switch, everyone was like, what's Nintendo doing? Right? Are they dried up? Do they have no more ideas? Can they not continue to innovate in this space? Is this not, there was like a lot of anxiety about what the fuck Nintendo was up to and how they would ever compete with the Wii. And now that the Switch has been such a smash, it's like when you look at that timeline and you're like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. That's when Nintendo did a thing nobody liked. Don't worry about it. Like, you the whole, um, that moment of potential. I mean, this is the thing that Nintendo is always seems always able to do, which is like kind of pull itself back into being the center of the discussion, right? Into being the most interesting toy in the room. And it did it with the Wii,
Hmm.
it did it with the Game Boy. It's got one of these a decade, really.
Hmm.
You
It
know.
did it with the Switch.
Yeah, did it
You
with the
know,
Switch. I mean, that's what I would say. Yeah. The Switch like changed the I mean, 50% of our students, that's their primary console. You know?
well, let me take a quick peek at my data, and I can confirm the same ratio. I believe. Let's see, where are we? I own a Switch. I own a Switch. Where's the Switch one? Hmm.
Yeah, what number is it?
What
It's
question is 53% owns a Switch.
yeah.
Ooh, I have someone on a Switch 2. Do you have any Switch 2 owners?
I have 4 Switch 2 owners and 25 Switch owners. So actually it's more than so it's 58% of my students own a Switch.
Wow, that's so wild. Very few PC players. Let me
That
see.
PC isn't in that I only have 17% of my students who don't play games on PC at all.
Hmm.
But most of them would say that the majority of my students would say that they are 54% say they play PC the most, then mobile, then console. Interestingly, even though almost 60% of them own a Switch. But, you
That's
know,
yeah. PC is the biggest category for some reason too. We have to
yeah,
go through this with like a fine tooth comb. This is
I know. I'm going
very
to have to
rich.
cut you loose. So, is there a big kind of. So you start your class by talking about Nintendo, like first day of lecture, like this is what we're doing.
I start my class with the digitalization of entertainment, like how music, film, video games have been trying to adjust to this new model of distribution, and some still stand and others have died a long time ago. And so how do you manage to take something that makes multiple $1 billion a year, that has all these different components and is dependent so much of this rooted hardware kind of device ecosystem, and now suddenly it has to be digital, and for all intents and purposes, like the eShop for Nintendo is trash. You know this, I
Yeah,
know this, and so they've
yeah.
been
They've
very
not
bad in that sense.
they've they've not done a good job with the curation of that space.
Or even making it easy for people to use it. It's like
Yeah.
almost like, don't come here, we don't want to sell you anything. It's very deliberate in some ways. So you wonder, like, why. So if they're not as cool and as slick around being digital, like Steam or like Spotify or any of those places, like, then how are they still around? Wasn't that? And so the logic here is, of course, that things have to be fun, but also that like innovation doesn't is not purely a technologically determined equation. I mean, this has become my hobby horse over the years. It's always been sort of there, but it's like Nintendo is such a good example of like tech means shit. Like, you can make it as fancy as you want or be as bad as you can, like Nintendo is at some of these things, and still succeed. And so, in other words, the emphasis on better technology is just a marketing narrative that we've been sold for years. Just doesn't hold any water. And yet, if you look at sort of current days, like that's exactly what we're getting, right? Like AI is going to change everything. Web
Yeah,
three,
yeah,
the
yeah.
metaverse. Like these are all tech
Yeah.
utopias that don't exist, and games are the killer app in some capacity. But it's like, I don't think so, and here's why. So that's Nintendo sort of level sets that and kind of takes away
Mm, mm,
the
mm,
larger
mm.
narrative. The best way, and then we can move on to another one. But it's the best way to think about this is always like Nintendo nowadays has a lot of pixels, but back in the day, Mario is Mario or Jumpman because they only had so many pixels to design in, and they had to make a little character seem lifelike and had some animation. And so they gave him a mustache and gloves and overalls, because if you give him pants and a shirt, it doesn't do as much. It's not as interesting to look at, right? And so by giving in a very small design space that much flavor as to what the character was like, you end up with an Italian plumber, right? Because it's not like in Japan they were just like, wow, I wonder what that would be like if we could have an Italian man with a mustache fix the piping and make a game about that. Just like it makes no sense. So it was a design thing, and that just became now, of course, now we have the legacy. But so it's the lack of technology that defines the company more than anything else.
Mm, mm. Hmm.
That's my starting point.
I mean, I like the premise, right? Is that get our heads out of this kind of like weird competitive, more graphics, more processing power, more pixels, more whatever, and let's actually like talk about all the other components that go in to making games an industry.
Hmm.
Yeah, we start in very different places.
It's if you like that, you'll love the book I'm writing. But it's like tech is in my world is such an overpowering narrative. You're just like this
Yeah,
is
they think it's gonna fix everything, right?
it's
And
always the
it's like,
best
have you
thing.
met people?
Have you worked anywhere? I mean, shit, it's so dysfunctional. So, but it's part of it is to kind of interrogate and question some of the logic that goes into these billion-dollar companies and how they plan their own roadmaps or whatever. It's also like for my students, it's more a question of like, hey, look, here's a billion-dollar company and they suck. Why? I thought they had all the resources and they could attract all the talent and they could invest and they could do 10 years of R&D spending. Like, why? Why aren't they better at this? And it's stuff like this. So there's a lot more nuance in it.
Yeah,
So are we Nintendo'd out? Do you have any questions? Do you want me to explain anything about Nintendo?
I don't know. What are your students hungry to know about Nintendo?
I don't know, but they're playing it. They're playing a lot of it.
They're playing. Oh, they
It's
sure are.
as an educator, I also like to bring the room together early on in the semester, and so Nintendo is sort of is a common denominator. So everybody kind of at least you've played it or touched it or you know of it. Like whereas PC can be a little bit more polarizing or self-selecting. Everybody's played Nintendo. Do you think that $80 for the new games is too much money?
I mean, do I think it's too much money? Like I think
Should they be cheaper? Should they be more expensive?
it's a I would be I would like to look at the actual spreadsheets of their costs. I would like to understand better. I mean, there's no question that holding the price point at 50 to $60 for several decades was not going to be sustainable, right?
Hmm.
It just wasn't. There was no way they weren't losing on margin on that over time. But it is also, but I mean, the whole problem of the Razer and Razer Blades model is that the console is supposed to be the thing that's cheap, and then you're supposed to make hay on the software.
Yep.
And if the software is now mass, I mean, it's a lot of. I'm trying to think of a consumer purchase comparable to an $80 unit price for an experience like that. We don't pay that much for music, books, maybe for a monthly streaming service we might, if you're talking about bundles. But it is a lot. I mean, I think it just means that people are more that they I would assume own less and
Hmm.
expect more out of the experiences they do own. You know?
Interesting. I can tell you this much. So the cost of game development has only gone up,
Yeah,
right? That's sort of like the obvious thing. But
yeah.
the selling price, the average selling price or recommended retail price is has sort of stayed the same. They went from 60 to 70 like 5-10 years ago, and everybody was a little upset, and then everybody forgot. And now it's going to 80, and people are upset again. But it doesn't seem like they really care that much. The challenge is so it's part consumer perception, but it's also substitutes. Like 10 years ago, you didn't have 18,000 titles coming out on Steam every year and an abundance of like free to play titles in any category on any platform. So there's so much more to spend your time on. the difference, and this is sort of like a segue for Roblox, which we'll talk about next, which is um, you know Nintendo has those brand values, like you say, like it's very clear about what it offers, and you know what you're getting. So is that worth the $80? Yes or no?
I mean, with
I
the
th- I
Nintendo, you
think so.
can usually count on the fact that it is, in most cases. Now, here, let me prediction question for you, Yost.
Mm.
How long do you think it'll be till we see the first $100 game?
Um, okay, you got to be specific because that's a quotable offense. Do you mean like a base game, $100, or you
Yeah,
mean?
like a console base game, $100.
Mhm. Um, I don't think anytime soon,
Oh,
but this acceptance. So like the best way to illustrate or sort of the arena to put that in is like GTA 6. When next
yeah.
year in May, Grand Theft Auto 6
What's that
launches,
price going to be?
is it going to be $100 or not? And my theory is no. It's probably going to be 80,
80.
85 tops. It's sort of like it's premium. And look, you know what you're getting. It's the best we've
You're
ever
getting
had. Blah blah blah.
5 years of content out of this.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's going to be an amazing thing. But if you start doing $100 for the base game, I think you're going to deter too many people. What they're going to do probably is like keep it at 80, but then have like the premium experience and the extra pack and the cool car. And I will gladly pay $300 for the fully loaded, sandwich with all the condiments. But I don't think you can say hot dogs are now $80. Like you got to give me the upsell. Like so, the gold remaster, special edition director's cut Star Wars trilogy, sure, make that whatever. But the base game has to stay sub 100 because otherwise you're just not going to build enough of an install base and there's momentum around it. But that's a good question. Last year that was a big ticket for a lot of people, especially around Nintendo's launch with $80 for the digital copy of the
I
game.
mean, if you think about it, it took us like 20 years to get from 60 to 80. So it could take us, but will it take us less time to get from 80 to 100?
Well, yes, it will take us less time. Yes,
Yeah.
and it's so another factor here is like, or another tendency is its bifurcation. There's going to be sort of a split in the consumer base. You have premium customers, like the lunatics that spend just thousands of dollars and thousands of hours every year. And then there's everybody else that are totally willing to spend nothing or very little. They can't spend it, they won't spend it, or they don't have to spend it. And I think that that's going to be the bulk of the customer base. But there's going to be this premium thing in the same way that you see that in fashion or in cars or everywhere else. There's always going to be this velvet rope experience, and the diehards will pay whatever you charge. We used to track these transactions for all these different companies, and they would sell like statues or models for like their characters in games. They sell for $400, and they would fly off the shelf faster than you can say Assassin's Creed, right? And so in many ways, it's like the collectibles would go for these ridiculous prices. So diehards will pay for it, but you got to give them the upsell. You got to give them the special VIP package.
Yeah.
That's where I sit with that. So are you gonna buy all this? Do you have a Switch too?
I don't have a Switch 2, and I can't. I mean, Yost, I am still running a Xbox One. Like, I'm, I don't even have the new gen console. Um, I wait for a number of games to accumulate that would make me buy it. You know, like I need there to. There's rarely ever been a launch title where I was like, I have to have that. I'm upgrading immediately. I don't think I've never been that. I'm a little too price sensitive. And so I hang out, and the number one thing I use my Xbox for is to stream television. My
You're like,
entire setup is built around that. And I will probably buy one soonish.
"Hmm,
Once my post sabbatical salary cut kicks out. Um, it's overdue. I'd like to play Cyberpunk now that they fixed all the mistakes, all the bugs. But I don't even own a current gen. I would see it being a very long time until I switched from a Switch Lite to a Switch pretty quickly, because for me the detachable controllers are such a
mhm,
compelling feature for kind of physical therapy reasons, the ability to have a controller to be able to have my arms in any position is a
Mhm.
huge quality of life upgrade. But there's nothing between the Switch and the Switch 2 that has that kind of meaning for me. Would I like to play Donkey Kong Bonanza? Yes, I would. But it's going to have to wait.
Uh, well, it does have social play. So if I get a Switch 2 and get
Sure
the
don't give
game,
a shit.
then
Oh.
then
Oh,
you can
then we
play
could.
with me.
Okay.
I think it's like it's just blasphemous, really, that like people in your position aren't approached by Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo saying like we'll send you one so that you can actually like appropriately inform all of the
Get that
students.
on the record, you know? Like
They send them to like these half-baked bloggers on the internet who can barely spell. They get free shit. Come on,
and I'm
and
certainly, there was an era when I could have used my funding to buy these things, but like not in our current 3% budget cut across the board us like austerity. Like I'm not going to be allowed to like buy a new Nintendo. And also they don't give us enough research funding to be able to do that regularly. Like, yeah.
it's so
Yeah. I would
strange.
love somebody at Nintendo want to send me a Switch 2, an Xbox X. I'll take it.
No, no, they should. You understand?
They
Like it's
should. They
like if
should.
you were a professor of film, wouldn't they like invite you to like review Oscar nominations or some shit like that? Like, of
But would
course.
they buy me a television?
Listen, um, televisions go for like 2 grand. Like a Switch is 400 or 500 bucks, and we haven't talked about pricing by the way. But so it's odd to me that's not an obvious thing, but the games industry from a research perspective is always cumbersome. It's expensive to get the stuff. It's also very time consuming to play all these things.
Yes.
So it's not
Yeah.
like you watch a movie for an hour and a half and now you've seen everything. It's like no, it's 40 hours of your life minimum.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Um,
All right. So speaking of things that take a long time, forever games like Roblox are sort of the
things
other.
that talking about things that take a long time. Trust and safety at Roblox.
Snap. Lane, tell me how you really
Uh,
feel.
yeah, I did a little. Well, when I was trying to think of okay, what's on the back half here? I did a little roundup. I was like, what's been going on at the Roblox hired a new chief. They hired that lady. I can't remember what her title is.
New lady chief.
uh
Well,
she's supposed
well
to do
researched.
something with she's not the chief safety officer. They have a man who was previously head of product who's the chief safety officer, but I
No.
think she is some, I don't know, a lot's going on inside Roblox HQ. So first of all, in mid-August they had to deal with the fact that the state of Louisiana filed a lawsuit against them. The Louisiana attorney general filed a lawsuit against Roblox accusing the platform of failing to protect children from sexual predators. So going back to, the one of the most popular critiques of Roblox, the suit claims Roblox prioritizes growth and profit over safety, leading to an environment where predators can easily act on minors. So it cites things like the lack of effective safety protocol that lets predators quote thrive on Roblox. There's been voice altering tech that people use to pose as minors on Roblox. Roblox defends its policies. There's not been any update on this lawsuit. The last news I've been able to find about it was in like mid-August. But, Roblox has been, and I'll say this, by its own damn doing, forever on the back foot in this stuff, right? I mean, it's been, it kind of waits for something to explode and then it goes around trying to patch, stuff to meet. And so you get these kind of escalatory situations. I mean, my thoughts and feelings about this are like, I don't want to ever, I don't want to defend Roblox, but I also think that maybe the state of Louisiana could think about the many other things that might be harming children, like its astoundingly low academic performance, like its high mother mortality rate, like the number of children in the state that live in poverty or live in food deserts, the cancer alley that many children live in, that is, the doing of the state of Louisiana. I think there's a lot of like things closer to home that maybe you could focus on if you were interested in the welfare of children. You know, and the other thing we all know is that a child is statistically more likely to be harmed in any fashion by their parents, teachers, coaches, and faith leaders than they are a stranger on Roblox. So, you know, clean your house. But we would rather imagine the threat on the outside, right? That's an easier way to like create a narrative and headlines for oneself. So,
Hmm.
you know.
A lot of big feelings. The
Could you imagine Letitia James in New York City wasting her time with this shit? Like, I'm
you
gonna
know,
sue Roblox. Like,
it's
do you have nothing else to do in Louisiana? Jesus.
of all the places. Well, I mean, probably precisely because it's Louisiana, right? But it's a distraction to something. But the thing about all of this in my mind is Roblox in and of itself uh, certainly presents, of course, its risks. As a parent, I see this all the time. You read about it, but it has a bit of. It starts to feel sometimes a bit like when I first came to the US, they always told me with Halloween is only wrapped candy because apparently people were putting
People are
razor blades
shoving razor blades inside of
in
apples. Yeah.
apples, and and it's like there's like just like armies of predators out there ready to snatch your kid. And of course that does happen, and that is sad and scary and all that. And also the percentage of children of the percentage of child mortality, uh, caused by, I don't know, not correctly installing a car seat or putting a seatbelt on your child is like vastly greater than any kind of razor blade wielding predator out there. So it's just like but it's a much more
Yeah, no one wants to
interesting story.
answer the call inside the house, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So it's always
so
going to be some weird, like some mysterious person in the shadows.
boogeyman. Yeah,
And
and we
so,
don't actually want to address like the social underpinnings of these problems. So,
mhm.
but it's not keeping Roblox is fast at work playing whack-a-mole on this stuff. So in August, there was a big update on their romantic and sexual content policies. Did you know that Roblox has romantic and sexual content policies?
I'm only familiar with the ones at NYU.
So I think there's a number of things feeding this, right? Part of they don't want to get hoovered up into the shit that's happening. We see happening with Steam and itch.io, right? If payment processors got blocked, that would be a huge issue for them. They are also attentive to the fact that we're careening into a right-wing political environment in which there's a much tighter scrutiny about things that are perceived as quote unquote threatening to
Mhm.
children. So they've had a ban on explicit sexual contact, but now there is a ban on implied sexual activity, which I think is like when one bends the other one over, I think that is what counts as implied sexual activity in a Roblox scenario. There's a bunch of interesting rules around like not being able to depict private spaces. So bedrooms, bathrooms, like children will not be able to hang out in experiences that are dominated by private spaces or adult themed hangouts. So this would be bedrooms, bathroom, bars, or clubs would be restricted to anyone 17 and up. Um, unless you are running like a dollhouse style game in which beds and bathrooms are part of a house but are not the central to the game experience. So there is a line they're trying to draw here for different kinds of like creative applications. Your face is hilarious. Um,
It's just
they're doing more
go on.
automated detection, right? Because that is the only like they're just going to throw more AI at the wall,
Mhm.
trying to do detection for what they're calling volative user behavior. Whether that's behavior or actions, like there's lots of functionality inside of Roblox to be able to draw things, and that is that time to penis. We know about this, right? It's an
TTP.
important part of game culture. You can imagine any drawing functionality is going to be immediately. So they must just have a lot of like. There's just probably a whole large image model inside of Roblox that just is like collecting data on penis shapes to try and prevent those from showing up anywhere in the game.
I mean, if nothing else, there's probably enough dick pics out there to like feed the large language model. So it's like it is be very accurate and highly effective.
So they're tightening the screws on some of that, and then they have also promised that they are coming out with basically every experience, in order for it to be unlocked to the public, is going to have to be rated.
Hmm.
And so if it's not, the only people who can access it are people who are actively working on the development. Otherwise, but if you want to be able to release it and monetize it, my understanding is you're going to have to go through like the game rating questionnaire, which right now seems to be something like mild, moderate, extreme, or strong, restricted. It's like a 3 or 4 point category. But Roblox, Patrick Klepek did a big write up on this on his crossplay, like parents and games Substack.
Mhm.
That Roblox is going to be working with the IARC, International Age Rating Coalition. I don't know a lot about them. So this isn't the ESRB, which is the kind of US organization that handles game ratings, or like PEGI in Europe. They're working with this other organization to develop standardized global age content ratings.
Does
That's
that make
that's the Roblox trust and safety roundup.
does that make sense to you?
What?
Well, so here's a precursor. Like the for the longest time, there was this debate about whether or not video games would cause antisocial and violent behavior. Violent games were the culprit, right? And so, well, if you look at it, this is Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of Take Two Interactive. I think he said that well. He says like, gun violence is a uniquely American problem, and so it's I mean disproportionately so. There's just more deaths in the U.S. per 100,000 people with firearms than there is anywhere else in the world. So you can't really connect the dots so easily to that. Do you think that makes sense to take sort of a global lens to this type of behavior and these type of
I
is
mean,
that a,
I don't think they're actually going to take a global lens, right? I think that global, that language is doing a lot of work. Let's put that in quotes.
Mhm, mhm.
In a context like this, I was just reading up on the IARC. I mean, the languages it represents are Chinese, English, German, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Spanish. So it's mostly U.S., European, and then a little East Asian. Um, so South Korea's Game Rating Administration is a member. Australia's classification board is a member. I guess it's like an overarching. It seems like an overarching coalition for all of the different national agencies, which is how they get a kind of set of globalized standards about whatever this is. You know, I don't think that'll be as hard as. I mean, they're just trying to create, you know, a sense of global description. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, no, look, like if nothing else, awareness, right? Like, yo, check it
yeah.
out. We shouldn't have this in the same way that there should be awareness around data privacy, and there's all kinds of recruiting for extremist causes going on in like online and digital spaces. So, let's not pretend that that's not an issue or that gambling addiction is not an issue. All of these things are
Oh
real.
yeah, there's stuff about the representation of gambling spaces also
Mhm.
wrapped up in these Roblox policies.
You know,
Um,
this is part of the reason why these tech utopias are trash ideas because people bring the worst of themselves to all of these new spaces too. It's like that's not different. We just don't have the legislation or the policies in place. I just wonder if sexual predation is a uniquely American problem in the same way that gun
no,
violence is.
no, I don't
No,
think so.
no, I don't
I
think
think
so either.
sexual predation. I mean, I don't have statistics at the top of my fingers, but I know that like sexual trafficking is absolutely like a global issue,
Hmm, hmm.
um, and that is not. I mean, it's power flows definitely like the money that moves it. There's definitely probably a disproportionate amount in the U.S. and Europe, but sexual predation is a global phenomena.
Right. So
Um,
it's a different thing. It's a different
yeah,
kind
it's a
of.
different thing than it's than being able to buy a gun in a vending machine. which is like basically what you can do in the United States for unless you're trans. Apparently, they're gonna make sure that people with. Did you hear about this?
Hmm. I heard about this.
Yeah, yeah. That
It's
they, if you have gender dysphoria, you're mentally ill and therefore cannot own a firearm.
hmm except in the state of Louisiana, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, get on it, Liz Merrill.
It's like, why is this box of cereal so heavy? It's because it has
Oh,
a.
there's a gun at the bottom. That's the prize.
That's the toy. Kinder Egg, huge Kinder Egg because it has a revolver in it. All right.
All right, all right. I think that was a good little roundup. Why don't we get to some pawns and owns? Yeah.
I have a pwn. Do you want to start with an own
Oh,
to lighten the mood?
you do your pawn.
Okay. So Ubisoft has laid off people from its publishing team, which, it's whatever. That's the state of the industry that we're in, I guess, and that's what's going on with Ubisoft. And without getting into why that would be the case, the pwn is really like, of course, so sorry that these people are losing their job. But if you read past the headline, it's 9 people that lost their job. It's still like on an individual level, terrible. So sorry. And also, do we have to report it every time somebody gets demoted or laid off? Like, at what point does it stop being newsworthy? I just feel
Mm.
like we're getting to the point where it's like now we're just reporting this to feel bad about stuff. And is there, which is not to say, again, it's like, well, of course it's an industry. There's always going to be turnover and people are going to be laid off. Projects and in this case, it was Tencent related, like Tencent backed something and then unbacked it, and so things change in organizations, but it's always sort of in an angle of like, oh my God, isn't this terrible? Damn those executives. And
Are
so
you?
I'm just saying,
Oh,
like,
well, no one think of the executives. And
no,
are you thinking that layoff phenomena is overreported in the games press? Is
my
that what
pwn
you're?
my pwn is first and foremost that it sucks for those people, and secondly, aren't we getting a little like obsessive with these layoffs as an industry, with the narrative of like, oh my God, the sky is constantly falling and everything's always on
But
fire?
like, Yos, what if the sky is constantly falling?
Well, then I would expect it to be more than 9 people, first of all, because Ubisoft employs like 19,000 people. So this is not even a percentage of anything. Nominally.
So the point is that 9 people losing their job was not good enough for you. How many people need to lose their job, Yost,
you
for
know, at,
this to become
at least
a
110,
layoff?
at least 100 or more, like 3 digits. No, I'm just saying, like, I feel it too, because a lot of my colleagues and friends and people I know, they suffer the same fate. At the same time, it's like, it creates
It's
such a like
I would I
downward
would
narrative.
invite I would invite those in positions of authority who are tired of layoff hating to understand that it is an expression of a general and very warranted frustration with the precarity of this labor in a general sense that is
Mhm.
outstripping these specific expressions of it. That, like, the reason why you see so much repetition in this space is because it's already more prevalent than it is in other industries, and there's very little other outlet for making
Mhm.
these challenges visible.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm trying to think about any other kind of entertainment industry where this happens at the same way, like
I
every
mean,
time.
well, it's because they don't do the employment cycles are different, and you don't have mass unionization like you do in film and TV. But when those layoffs happen, they are reported on, right? Because it's because of the structure of the labor market more than anything else.
Yeah, I guess it's really what I'm saying. It's like I understand the materiality of it. It's are we sort of stuck as an industry in the stories that we tell about ourselves, in this kind of polarizing algorithmic tech driven narrative, like where the are we also going to mention when there's investment and people get hired, or is that not a thing? It's like, so like unionization is sort of like the antidote to this narrative. Like, oh, people are unionizing and that's good and positive. At the same, it's like it's I don't know. Like it feels like we're kind of picking at a scab endlessly in some ways. Because at some point, like yes, this is part of a
For it to be
correction.
a scab, it would have to be healing, right? And so I think like it's not,
But
you
there
know.
is so much more activity around unions nowadays than there has been ever before.
I wouldn't take the fact that like there are now like four unions as it's great and cool
Hmm.
and also not enough, right? It's I mean there is unionization activity, but I think this is like the scales of all of this stuff are not equal.
So the amount of layoffs is
Easily outstrips the amount of
overwhelms
people,
the unionization.
overwhelms,
The
and the
unionization.
frequency of it and the way in which it is just kind of part of the culture of the game industry.
Hmm.
I think that's that it's made itself a ready target for journalists, right or wrong. Right? I think we need an article about 9 people getting laid off? No, that seems quite normal. But that the industry should understand that's a critique of the way that it functions in a general sense, right? And if it would like that to stop, then rethink your staffing. That's what
All right, that was very helpful. Thank you for helping me understand that better. I
um,
will jot it down as a pwn for 9 people losing their job at Ubisoft.
all right. My own is going to be real quick. The NBA 2K26 dropped on September 5th, and the WNBA cover
Uh oh.
is the one and only Angel Reese. So
Well,
it's very nice. Get it wherever your finest games are sold. You may recall I struck out last year when I bought this on Switch, and then didn't realize that for whatever reason the version that you bought on Switch did not have the women.
and so now Angel is on the cover.
Angel's on the cover. Yeah.
Let's take a look.
They always do or in the past few years, right? There's been a men's and women's cover for the latest release of NBA 2K.
Oh, so cool. Interesting. It's very interesting. Is that the first time?
No, no. Before it was it's very hard to search for these images on the internet because this is NBA 2K 2026, even though we're in 2025. But if you
Mhm.
search for 2025, you'll get the images from 2026. And so, but I think was it Asia on the cover last year? I don't know why I'm looking at Keaton as if Keaton would know, but 2024, or if it was
That's
Caitlin Clark on the cover. Um, yeah, this is not a thing Google image search can actually can understand the correct keywords to serve because the it's all I'm getting is 2K26. But no, it's not the first time there's been a yeah, there's been like 3 or maybe this is the fourth or something like that. But they only started doing them recently.
interesting. I know that, like I do know that celebrities on the cover of video games make them sell 19% more than
Really?
those without. Yeah, yeah. Like this. You remember like the Blockbuster era, like how the cover of like the box of the DVD or the VHS tape had a particular kind of format and layout because if you could just they would always sort of stack them in a way so we'd have like the famous person, the star of the sort of on the right side, so that you could see like Brad Pitt's head or whatever. It's like, oh, it's a Brad Pitt movie, so you would choose based on that. In video games, a friend of mine actually did this whole research on it. It's like if you have in sports games the celebrity athlete on the cover, it sells 19% more.
Yeah. It was Asia Wilson last year. So
I have no
you don't know
opinion about Asia Wilson.
who Asia Wilson is
Listen, I barely know ball sports, so like it's start that.
from last year. She was last year's MVP, right? And plays for the Las Vegas Aces. She's pretty
Mhm.
iconic.
I'm sure I recognize this
She
person.
always brings a pride cake to her team every pride as a straight lady. That is her that is
How you relate to Asia.
her.
This is why you like Asia.
She's a power straight. She's good to gay people.
What's in a pride cake? Is it like
Yeah,
all the
it's
different
just
flavors?
it's
Like, is it like chocolate and strawberry and blueberry and like?
like full of quarters. No, it's mostly the outside. Like this year the cake she brought in said, "Let's get something straight, y'all aren't." And then there was like little like made out
Oh,
of
it's a pun. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
there was puns, and then there was little like figurines made out of, what is it, marzipan, that were like depicted like scissors and other like inappropriate jokes, etc. Don't
Ooh,
think
like
too hard about it,
of
Yos.
a sexual nature.
Of a sexual nature,
Oh,
objects of a sexual nature.
don't let Roblox hear this.
That's right. Couldn't talk about this in a private room. All right. With someone under the age of 17. I wouldn't be doing that. What are you talking about? All right. We got to call this. We've been yeah.
Let's end this before we get into real
Yeah,
trouble.
before we get canceled as if we already aren't. Okay. All right. Well then, next week, for real this time, we will be talking about the survey data. We'll see you there. See you then. Same great time, same great taste. Good night and good game.